Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Altenew Educator Frosty Splendor video hop. I'm Candy Thomas, and we appreciate you joining us. Also, don't forget there's a giveaway. Here's the information. And make sure to leave a comment, like, and subscribe to be entered for a chance to win some of the giveaways. So today I have three different cards for you to go with this theme of Frosty Splendor. And you're going to see the different products that I use from Altenew just to do a take on it. I really wanted to focus on alcohol markers for the majority of this blog hop. And I thought it would be a great opportunity just to show different ways you can use any of those alcohol markers to create really pretty, vibrant backgrounds to go along with this frosty theme. So here you see me stamping the Rustic Chalet from the Cozy Winter Vibes stamp set. I'm also going to be using the coordinating dies for this. When I first stamped it, I went in with the Altenew permanent black ink, but I also really wanted to keep the brown feel of the wood, so I also used the toasted almond, and I went over the black with the toasted almond, and then I went back over the toasted almond with a little bit of the black, so that way we get a really dark, nice hue. Also in this same set, I'm going to be using the little SUV and the Winter Wishes little tag stamp. And I'm going to go ahead and stamp my trees. That way I can use on a different card. So I'm going to get to use several of these elements from this stamp and die set. And it's such a cute little versatile set. And this Once Upon a Time, those trees are perfect timeless trees to go along with a winter vibe or any type of tree type outdoorsy theme that you want. Those are some really cute trees. And here what I'm going to do is I'm going to use varying shades of the greens that Altenew has. I'm going to first go over those in the lighter green, not this super light, but kind of more of a medium light green. And then you're going to watch me as I go over parts of only one side with a darker green. And that's just to give a little bit of dimension as I'm stamping these trees. And such an easy little trick whenever I am wanting to create dimension, but the stamp doesn't come with a coordinating stencil or whatnot. Sometimes you can add dimension just by layering your colors using from lighter green to darker green. Also, please forgive me for my voice. I have been going through different bouts of it going in and out, so if it goes out, please forgive me. As I was getting ready to make this card, I wasn't really sure how many trees I really wanted to use, but I knew I'd use those trees later. So while I had the stamp set out and the die set out, I went ahead and stamped extra. So here you're going to see that I'm using the 4 Scoops Altenew alcohol marker set, and I'm going in it with that brown color. And I'm going to kind of get using the darker brown in that darker side part, and I'm going to start showing dimension with the lighter markers. And as I go in with the lighter markers, I'm actually using that yellow color from this 4 Scoop set to kind of go in. It almost looks like a gold whenever I'm going over it, but it blends really well with that brown. So that way I can get the light and the dark that I'm really looking for to show more dimension and depth. And then I go back over the lighter portions with the darker marker. And you're going to see that I'm going to flip-flop between lighter and darker markers just to kind of get the color that I'm going for this rustic chalet. I love how Altenew has these alcohol markers. You can buy the whole set, or since alcohol markers tend to be more expensive, if you wanted to just buy a few sets at a time. I love how Altenew already has these ready-made sets that coordinate with various supplies that they already have. And that way you can get the most out of those markers. And as you think outside of the box sometimes. So, especially whenever I was looking for the brown alcohol marker, I knew that I really wanted to use this 4 scoop set because as you're going in and blending with the dark of the brown and then the gold and the peach and the pinks, it really makes the chalet come to life in the finish portion. And that's what I love about these alcohol markers because you can add so much depth with it. Now, I will go in and tell you, I am definitely not a coloring guru. However, I do enjoy trying to practice a little more. I'm still really working with it, watching other YouTube videos of trying to learn how to do it. But Altenew has some great videos if you're looking for more to watch of the coloring. I'm by no means a professional at this. I'm just trying to show you what I like and what I like for this card. And you'll see I use this peachy color down at the bottom whenever I was coloring in those stones. I'm going to first color in those stones with the lighter color, and then I'm going to go back and add to the corners of it with the darker color to let it blend. So I kind of sped up the video just because I keep going back and forth between the peach, the pink, and the brown. But now you're going to see me add just a little touch of the gold, like that yellow that came in this set. And I'm doing that because it really lightens it and blends those colors together even more. And I just go in there just a little bit just to get into some of the grooves of it. But it gives it that really nice tan type of tone. So here's how the finished chalet looked as I add in those final little details. And I am going to keep the white snow parts white because I'm going to do something a little bit later in the video for that. Here I'm going on to color in the lights from this SUV just to let those pop out just a little bit. Now I'm going to start coloring in the SUV. I'm smushing some of the ink onto a plastic wrap, and then I'm going in with the Altenew watercolor brush and I'm coloring in the grille of the SUV with this gray. I'll keep going back and forth, adding just a little more water just to get that nice light gray on that grille. And after I got the grill painted, now I'm adding the permanent black ink, and I'm also going to go over those tires and watercolor in those. And I have to go back over it several times just to get it really dark like I want it. And now I'm going to go in with Andromeda, and I'm going to be adding that color using the watercolor brush as well, just to kind of color in. I loved how this color looks whenever you put it on a vehicle when you're watercoloring with it. Yes, you have to go over it quite a bit just to get the color you want, but you really get to have a lot of control over it as opposed to just putting in a brush and a watercolor paint. If you prefer the watercolor paints instead of using the water-based dye inks like I'm doing here, Altenew has different pan sets for you to be able to use as watercolors. They've got lots of great sets for those. Now that I've colored the SUV, you see that I'm going in with Altenew's Toasted Mauve, and I'm going over some of those parts to really blend in from the alcohol markers and using a little bit of that dye ink just to really hone in on some of those parts. to give it character to the image. And it would not be Frosty Splendor unless we did a shimmer. So I went in with Perfect Pearls and I sprayed over the Christmas trees. I sprayed over that whole panel, the SUV, the little sentiment down at the bottom left. Also spray Perfect Pearls over the chalet. And those Perfect Pearls just give a wonderful shimmer. Makes it look so frosty and so, so good. So now you see that I am getting ready to color my background. I am going to go in with the lightest marker from this Shades of Purple set. These are also the Altenew alcohol markers. This is another great set, especially if you have a lot of flowers and you really want to color on the purple hue. This is a beautiful set of markers. So you see I'm coloring this entire panel in the lightest color just to give it a whole base of the same thing. Now I'm going in with the next shade darker and I'm going to start not in that corner anymore, but I'm going to leave maybe a little chunk of that corner and then I'm going to go in and color the rest of the panel with this darker color. So I'm going to keep on layering these purples. And now that I have a base of the two lightest colors, you can see it keeps building in color. Now I'm going to go down even further to start my new line with the third darkest color in this marker set. So I'm just going to keep going on coloring. My lines aren't perfect, but I'm just making it work. And you see I'm doing a chunk ribbon of it with that third darkest color. Now I'm going in that very bottom right corner with the darkest shade from this set. I'm going to kind of draw a little guider line so that way I don't go past that point. And now I have almost like a little ribbon of the four different colors. And it looks a little rough right now, but I'm going in and I'm coloring back over it, parts that I think need a little more ink. And I'm just going to kind of blend those together. I'm also going to be blending each ribbon band section with the lighter colors so that way it will blend really well. And as I finish going over it with all the lighter colors, you can see it's blended a little bit better since I've gone in over it all. And now I'm going to start using some of the Perfect Pearls to give it a little shimmer. Once again, just wouldn't be Frosty without all that shimmer and the sparkle. So some of it, I think my sprayer is a little bit clogged from my Perfect Pearls. So you see that I'm spraying it and there are some huge droplets of water. I'm just going in with a paper towel, just trying to ink blot those up so it doesn't create like a big focal point that doesn't look good. But look at all of that shimmer. It's gorgeous. Now I'm going to finish my background by putting this panel that I've just colored with the alcohol markers using the Geo embossing folder. And it's a 3D embossing folder. And one cool thing is, since the panel was kind of a little wet from the Perfect Pearls whenever I sprayed it, that let the Geo shapes get really into that card. Usually your panel does better if you spritz it with some water or if it's already wet from some of the sprinkle sprays. That's what helps it a lot. Okay, it's time to die cut. I'm going to use the Cozy Winter Vibes die cut set and I'm going to die cut that little chalet out first. And then I'll go in and die cut the sentiment and the SUV. After I die cut the chalet and the SUV, you can see in the left that my little winter sentiment kind of got cut off a little bit. So I'm just on a scrap sheet of paper, cardstock. I went ahead and stamped that sentiment again, and now I'm just going to die cut it. And to save time, I'm going to go ahead and start die cutting those 3 trees. Just in case you didn't get to see it really well, here is that panel background. And I love to see cards sometimes with rounded corners. So I'm just going in, rounding the corners on this panel. And I'm also going to go in and round the corners on the card base as well. To ensure that my card is sturdy in the mail, instead of using foam tape or dots, I'm using a thick foam sheet. It's like crafting foam, but I'm using the thicker piece just so I can cut one chunk of it out and put it on the back of that panel. I find sometimes if I'm mailing the cards, this tends to help the card hold up better instead of falling down and being pressed down in the cracks and getting messed up through whenever it's being sent. So we have sparkle, we've got shine, and now it would not be complete without a little more sparkle snow and some puff paint. So I'm using a white puff paint. I went over the rooftop with it. So what you do is it's really liquidy whenever you put it on, but whenever you go to heat dry it, it starts puffing up. But I knew I wanted it to have the shimmer look almost like real snow does when you know how it glistens in the sun. So I put some fake snow sprinkles on top of it right before I heat set it. That way, those shimmery pieces were inside of the puff paint whenever it puffed up. And it makes it look so real. It's very hard to tell in this video and in the photos, but man, is it gorgeous being puffed up. Also, you see down at the very bottom where part of that winter vibes, the sentiment is still on the snow. Don't worry, I'm just going to cover it up later. But look at how this puff paint just puffs it up. So I just keep going in bit by bit, adding more of the puff paint, adding more of the little fake snow sparkles, and then I heat set it over again. And it just turned out so well. And I'm also doing the same thing for the snow on the SUV. Okay, so let's go ahead and start assembling this cute little card. So you see that I am looking at the best spot for this chalet to go over that purple background. I didn't want it to cover it completely. I wanted a lot of it to shine through, but I still just wanted it to be really subtle. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere that panel to my card base. I don't know if I said it before, but this is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 card base. And now I'm measuring out the chalet. Since it's a pretty big chunk of a die cut, I'm measuring out some of that crafter's foam to add to the back of it. And then I'm going to go in those loose spots and add a little bit more foam. And then I'm going to adhere that to the panel. And now I'm using some of those trees. I'm going to start decorating the front of the chalet. These trees are going to be really beneficial in covering up that sentiment where I cut it off a little bit whenever I was die cutting. And now is the time to put the sentiment there in the middle. And I just kind of laid everything out before I went ahead and glued it down. The trees I did glue down, but that was because I had them adhered to the chalet instead of directly on the card. And then I had a little bit of craft foam behind the bottoms of those to make sure it was completely even. And I did add some more craft foam. ended up going back and doubling up my craft foam just so it could be a little taller than the snow in the chalet. I felt like in the snow, the way it was kind of flat up against the snow. So I needed it to pop a little more. And here we have the finished card. And I'm just going to reinforce my score line. But it turned out so cute. I think using these alcohol markers with that background, it gave it a different Christmas or holiday wintry, like frosty splendor look. And I really enjoyed how this turned out. And of course, if you've watched any of my videos or Instagram cards, you will know I love sparkle. So I had to go in and add a few little sparkly sequins. I use the ones that are somewhat iridescent and a little bit white just to give that really nice shimmer. But here is the completed card. I love how it turned out. I hope you did as well. And stay along with me, and we're going to go ahead and make our next card using these alcohol markers. Once again, I'm going to use alcohol markers for my background and an embossing folder. So I'm using the same two sets again. I'm just going to go over it, color it in the corners in a diagonal pattern, and I'm just going to keep building. The difference is between this panel and the previous card panel, I'm not coloring the entire card with that lightest color. I'm just going to keep reinforcing the color only in that one spot. And then I'm just going to keep building to a darker color and adding in some of the pinks in the middle. And now that I've got the two light purple colors, I wanted to give it a little bit of pop, something just a little bit different than just the purple. So I decided to use the 4 scoop out artist markers so that way I could add that pink in the middle. Okay, I'm going to finalize this last little band, and now I'm going in with a darker purple up against that pink. It gives it that stark contrast that I really love. And I know the pink is totally different than typical winter themes, but I thought, you know what? I'm already doing purple for a theme, and I really like pink, so why not? In that very bottom corner with the darkest shade so that way it can all blend together. I loved how vibrant this panel looked. I know my lines aren't perfectly straight, but that really won't matter because it's going to somewhat be covered up by using an embossing folder. And again, I am going in with that Shimmer Perfect Pearls Mist. I'm going to blot off any of the excess, but it just wouldn't be a complete card without that frosty look. So I'm going in and just wiping down some of the splotches from the Perfect Pearls. And you can see all of that shine on that card. And I had already off screen embossed this panel. I did it as the markers were still fairly wet. And then after adding the perfect pearls, because then it would keep this panel, making it more pliable whenever I went to emboss it. And now I'm just going to add some shimmer silver paper to the front of the cardstock just going to put that down. Once I get that silver paper down exactly over the card the way I need it, I'm going to go in and then put glue on the back of this craft foam panel, and then I'm going to add it to the top of that silver paper. The silver just kind of breaks up the monotony of all the white, and I went over the embossed portion with the Versamark clear ink, and then I heat embossed that as well. I also went over it using the silver pigment ink. Those little snowflakes in the corners, that's actually the leaf builder stencil from Altenew. I just loved how it turned out to look more like a snowflake. So I went over it with the Altenew white pigment ink. Now let's get into the card that I used with that SUV. So off screen, I went ahead and started ink blending a white panel, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 panel. And I ink blended it first with this lighter blue, but it wasn't getting to the color I really wanted. So you're going to see I'm going to go in with the lighter blue, this Andromeda, which is more like a really dark violet color. I'm going in with it. Then I go in with the Altenew Persian blue. I go in with Altenew Tanzanite, back in with Andromeda. And all of this building is what's going to help it to have that beautiful dark hue in the end. I'm just going to keep building on the ink color, going back and forth using all of these same inks over and over. I'll go from the blues to the Andromeda, which is more of like a violetly or more of a purpley blue. So I just keep going back and forth, just building and building and building on it. Now I'm going in with my anti-static powder because that panel had been so inky, and whenever I go in to add my snowfall, I'm going to heat emboss it, but I did not want it to mess up on my panel. So I actually off screen had to go and dry it and then re-stamp it with this snow stamp just because the panel was still too wet from all the ink blending. Now I'm using the Altenew Snowfall mini stamp set. This is such a cute little stamp set to add snowfall. I actually even use it just to add paint splatter look on some of my cards. So you don't have to just use it as snowfall, but it looks really pretty whenever I use it as a little background or like ink splatter. And now I'm just going over my stamp portion of the snowfall using this white embossing powder. And then I'm going to wipe off any of the excess with a paintbrush. I went down a little further with some of my stamping. I'm adding more of the embossing powder to cover that. I'm going to shake off all of the excess and then make sure it's all gone. I'm going to use a paintbrush just to get any of the small things out that I can't get out. I'm going to be really careful not to touch with my hands because every time you touch or move it until you heat set it, that powder will go away. To heat set it, and you'll want to heat set it until it is melted, and that way the snow will have a raised feel to it. It'll feel really cool for the recipient to just touch it. And once again, for this back panel, I just used a different color craft foam to go on the back. I tend to like using this similar color craft foam as whatever my back panel will be. That way it's harder to see the craft foam. Or I'll opt to go with a white if it's a white card base. That usually works out. So I'm going in, I'm placing that panel, and now I'm going to rearrange my SUV and the trees just to make it all work and flow together. Okay, and I'm just going in, adding the trees and the SUV. I'm putting some of the smaller ones in the back. But if you see, I'm a little bit struggling. I'm trying to get that SUV to cover up some of those bigger blotches on the trees from the shimmer spray. And I added some craft foam to the back of this little SUV as well. All right, it's time to stamp the sentiment. I'm going with the Merry Christmas stamp, and I am going to ink that up in that red crisp dye ink. It's a water-based ink, and I'm going to go over it just a couple of times to make sure it's very vibrant and red to go up against that blue background. I'm also going to die cut it with the Altenew Label Love die sets. These are almost like those nesting dies. And there is a coordinating stamp set. I didn't use that today, but it's a really pretty stamp set to create labels as well. So I went ahead and die cut that sentiment that says Merry Christmas. And then after I get everything set the way I want it, I'm going to add that to the middle. Little bit of that craft foam on the back of that sentiment. It's going to be pretty sturdy anyway, just because I have the craft foam on the back of that panel as well. And I love how that red just pops against that gorgeous blue sky and those beautiful trees. Touch, I'm going in and I'm going to score that edge and reinforce it to make it very crisp. And here is the final product of it. It's such a cute, quick little card. I hope you enjoyed this one too. So make sure to check out these cards. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. As you comment, Altenew puts you into the drawing for different giveaways. And all the giveaway information is at the end of this video as well as at the beginning of this video. So I truly hope that you enjoyed watching. Thank you so much for spending this time with us today. We all appreciate it, and we hope you have a blessed day.